Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio today by Brian Leonard, also of WagerTalk.com. Brian, we're going to take a look at, I want to say, almost said Army, Navy, close enough. Navy and Air Force, can't talk this morning. Navy comes in here, a little bit of a shock the last 2 weeks. They were home favorites both weeks, and not only did they not cover, they lost both games outright.
Yeah, I could see it from last week. Navy was home favorite to Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky was coming off a bye, and we've discussed many times when you play a team with a little obscure offense, having that extra week definitely helps in that regard. And yeah, Navy, after playing Ohio State so well in that first game, and a lot of that had to do with Ohio State with the new quarterback, but they've gone a little bit down since that point. But, you know, Navy over the years, this is a huge rivalry game, obviously. The last 17 years, the winner of this game has won the Commander-in-Chief trophy. I'm sure Army's not too happy with that. But this is a huge game, and, you know, Air Force coming off that big upset of Boise last week.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the things I'm going to ask you about, your concern about that. But just to backtrack for a second, how you said about the extra week to prepare, how big of an angle that is for Navy, and I agree with you 100%. And take that one step further. Not only did they have the extra week to prepare for them, Western Kentucky, but they played them last year too. So that's something that I look at whenever I'm dealing with Navy, because Navy is a team, like you said, they're unique in their offense. You don't see it that often. And I like to find the games where a team didn't play them the year before and only has 1 week to prepare for them. I think then Navy has a huge edge in preparation advantage in a game like that. But in this case, it's only 1 week to prepare, but these teams play every year, so they know how to defend it. Plus, you know, Air Force runs some different versions themselves. But the one thing that I think hurt Navy more last week, normally when we talk about a Navy team, we're talking they're the team that you don't see that type of offense all the time. They faced the team last week in Western Kentucky that, for the most part, for the conference and stuff they're in, they throw the ball a ton, and they like to play at a faster pace, which was something else that Navy's not familiar with.
Right, it's a great point, because when you have a team that in practice you're running against that all the time, and you don't throw the ball very often, when you face a team that throws the football, they're at a severe disadvantage. And we talked about the schedule with Navy. Navy every year, even though they're not in a conference, they still play the same teams a lot. So those teams have to be treated differently than the teams, as you mentioned, that rarely play Navy.
Yeah, now one thing, and I don't know which way you're going, but Navy has had success against teams from the Mountain West Conference and such. I think they've like 16-4 the last 20 against the spread against this conference. But this is a different team. Air Force clearly a lot better than a lot of the teams, you know, in there. But how do you react? We touched earlier, you mentioned the upset. Any concern with Air Force because it is a big upset game?
Well, the deal is the coach is on the hot seat. And I would think everything I've ever read out of him, he's a great guy. The players love him. They want to keep him there. So obviously, I think even though Boise was a huge upset for them, and it was very important because Boise is supposed to win the Mountain West, right, even as bad as they've looked at times this year, it tells you how bad the conference is. But this is the big game on the schedule for them. And as I pointed out, the Commander-in-Chief trophy is what both of these teams go for. And with Army not being up lately to that level that Air Force and Navy is, this is the game that they circle. Air Force would love to win the Mountain West Conference, but if they win this game, sort of like, you know, when Cleveland and Pittsburgh in the NFL were really big rivalries when they were both very good, Ohio State, Michigan. Right. You know, Cooper got fired. He'd win all of his games and lose against Michigan, gets fired. So a lot of times, a lot of the fans want this game more than they do the conference championship.
And I'll throw in, and then we'll wrap it up because this is your play. I'm a situational guy, and normally I would always go to look for a team with a letdown after a major upset like that. But because, as you said, this is the bigger rivalry, and throw in the fact, I don't do that so much with the military schools. I think they're more disciplined, that they don't have those up and downs, other than when they face the other military school. So I think whoever wins this game, let's put it this way, if Air Force does win this one, after beating Boise State and then beating Navy, if they do that, I think you might want to go circle and take a good look at whoever Air Force is playing next.
That's right. And for anybody who's betting openers, you kind of know where that line's going to go. But yeah, I'm gonna play this game now, and if we're ready, you know, I'll tell you the reasons for it. As I mentioned, huge rivalry. Go back the last 5 years. Not only has it been tight games the last 5 years, 3 of those 5 games went into overtime. The other games were decided by 8 points, and then last year, 18 points. Navy wins that game by 18 points. But in reality, at halftime, Air Force led that game 10-7. They had a -3 turnover disadvantage in that game. That's what really hurt them. Final yardage, they were only outgained by 14 yards. So when you take a look at it, the final score wasn't indicative of the way the games were played. So you go back the last 5 years, 4.5 games out of those 5 were very tight, right on the number. They know each other very well. You're catching a team right now in Air Force catching 4.5 at home against a Navy team that is down a little bit this year. And I believe Air Force is down also. I don't think they're as good this year. But even last year when Air Force was 2-10, they were a team that was able to stick in there for 3/4 of that game. I like this Air Force team. I think we're getting a nice advantage here.
All right, there it is. Brian says to take Air Force plus the points. I'll throw one last thing in there. Air Force has added a little wrinkle to their offense this year. They have thrown the ball a little bit more this year than they have in the past. Not a lot of pass attempts and completions, but the ones they're going for big yardage because they're catching defenses not ready for it. That's it. Brian Leonard says to take Air Force plus the points on Saturday. We're going to be right back. WagerTalk.com. You can also find us at WagerTalk.tv as well. And we'll have big game college football on Saturday, Notre Dame and Stanford.